To sequence the order in which stimuli are presented, such as in a standard lexical decision task, we need to create three objects, or two objects if you want. Well, we're going to use three objects. The first being a fixation point, the second being a prime, and then third being a target. These are just placeholders. It's not actually going to display the word prime or target. We'll get to that in just a moment. So the first thing we want to do is sequence the fixation point first. So we're going to click on the fixation point as the object to be edited. Go to the properties bar and then hit the time display and enable it. And this will allow us to show the fixation point immediately. Say we're going to show it at 1 millisecond and then hide it after 500 milliseconds. The next object we want to display would be the prime. So let's make that 501 milliseconds to show, and then remove it after remove it after 1 second, so it'll display for a total of 500 milliseconds. And then lastly, we're going to do the same thing with the target. We're going to show it after 1 second, and we're going to leave it showing indefinitely. So those are the three things we're going to do first. The next thing we're going to do is to add the stimuli lists into the data, or the trial data view right here. And essentially, this will allow us to present different primes and targets instead of the words prime and target itself. So in this case, we created two variables, one called prime, one called target. And let's add a few more rows, and let's just use some arbitrary numbers and letters. So let's make the primes 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to make the targets A, B, and C. In your own experiments, you can use faces, objects, whatever other stimuli you'd like. But this is what we're going to use for now. And let's close that and randomize the order. So the way we randomize is click on the trial that you want to use, and then just hit randomize repetitions. Couple more things before we preview this. We need to link these variables we created to the actual placeholder objects so that they know where to grab the list. So in this case, we're going to click on the prime because we want the prime to display the prime variable. We're going to go to formulas, and we're going to type in this syntax. So got two open squiggly brackets, @, single quotation, and then the word prime. And then we're going to close it with another single quotation and two more squiggly brackets. The spaces aren't really necessary, but I just did it for visual purposes. And then we're going to do the same thing with the target. We're going to display target by using the same syntax with the word target as the variable. As you can see, they match. Target and prime will match these areas, so it will know to display the text in the variable prime, which is here, and it'll just pull 1, 2, and 3 in random order. So that's the second last thing. The last thing we need to do is to correctly position or overlay the objects on top of each other. So the target is the last object being displayed, meaning it should go in the very back. And the way you do that is to click on an object and press forward or backwards to move it. So if we pressed prime and backwards, then the target would come forward. But if we press target or prime and then come forward again, or send the target backwards, either way will work. Then the prime will come back forward. So the target's in the back. You can tell that it's a little bit opaque, and that's why it's in the back, or that's the indication. And then lastly, we're going to bring the fixation point over top. Now let's give this a quick save and preview what we just did. Right, so we had the fixation point show for half a second, the number 1 for half a second, and then A is showing indefinitely, being the target. So let's just say it's 1 that we saw. Then again, we just saw 3 and C. So we know that this is picking the trials in random order because 1 came first and then 3 came second. So let's just say it was 3, and then 2 is being the last image. So let's close that. The second thing I wanted to demonstrate to you was how to create an interstimulus interval. So that's an interval where no objects are being shown at all for a certain period of time, be it half a second or 1 second, and then the rest of the objects will show in sequential order. So why don't we go to this object, or this trial down here, And what we're going to do is to set up an interstimulus interval of 1 second for everything on this canvas. And then we're going to have the same sequence as before, where we display the fixation point, the prime, and then the target. So the first thing we need to do is to click on all of the objects we wanted to delay. And we're going to delay it by 1 second. So let's start with these buttons down here. So we're going to enable the time display, and we're going to show these after 1 second. And then we're going to do the same thing with buttons 2, oops, that should be 1 second, not 2 seconds. And the same thing with button 3. Now we're going to go with the same sequence as before, except we're going to delay it for another second. So in this case, we're going to show this at 1 second as well, and hide it after 1500. So this is the same 500 millisecond interval that it will be displayed for. With the prime, we are going to display it immediately following the fixation point, so 1501, and then removing it after 2 seconds, and then displaying the target after 2 seconds, and then leaving it to be displayed indefinitely. So the same thing, we need to add these the primes. Let's do 4, 5, and 6, and then E, F, G, just to be a little bit different. And the same thing again, we need to link the variables we just created with the stimuli list. Okay, now that that's ready, we need to basically overlay them again properly. So we're going to put the target behind prime, and then the fixation point over prime. We're going to save that, and let's bring this up so we can preview this right away. So in this case, we saw the 4 being presented and then the E. We're going to just hit 1. So if you notice, for a brief second, nothing was displayed. Then the fixation point and the 3 buttons displayed all at once. The button stayed indefinitely. However, the fixation point went away, the prime came, and then the target was displayed. And let's just hit it something else. There we go. So we have the same sequence of events right there. And now we're going on into the original trial that we had created before. I'm just going to click through so you can see the results. So we should see that the E was displayed first, F, G, C, A, and then B, and then the reaction times corresponding to each of the presses.